I'm Big Bob.
And I'm Ann.
What's up? What's up, Big Bob?
No, you're supposed to say, "What's up, Ann?" And I
No,
say,
Big Bob
"What's-"
comes before Ann.
I know,
That's
but you're
why you
not.
started out.
Okay, well, what's up, Big Bob?
What's up, Ann?
Whoa, I don't know. You tell us.
Well, today we have a wonderful guest, but before we start with our wonderful guest, we give a shout out to Brenda Ringwood, the founder and executive director of Becoming the Better You. And our guest today is
Mr. Brian Koehn.
Come on down.
Well,
Oh,
he would,
he's
but
not
he's
here.
in Phoenix.
Right. Okay. So Brian's not with us today, but we're doing this electronically, Zoom. What is this stuff called?
It's like online,
Yeah. Between the two
virtual,
of us,
yeah.
I just learned how to use the microwave last week, so I need a lot.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Brian,
Big Bob.
David,
George,
whatever.
what do you do?
I'm saving the world.
One whale at a time?
Yeah, I don't know about one whale at a time, but one prison at a time.
So what's the name of your company and how does it service people?
Well, it's social purpose corrections. And so it's in the grand scheme of U.S. corrections, with the 2 million plus people we incarcerate, 92% of the beds are managed by government, whether it's federal, state, or local. Then you have 8% of the beds or incarcerated population that are managed by private for-profit companies. And now you have us. We're the first of our kind in the nation, actually the world. So our vision is to operate prisons and jails as a nonprofit, use business efficiencies, then take the revenue generated from those business efficiencies and reinvest it back into people, ultimately to significantly reduce recidivism.
For how long have you been doing this?
A little over 30 years. I was the head of security of 65 prisons. I was a warden at 5 prisons. Probably one of the most, if not the most diverse, experienced corrections leaders in that, because I worked for private corrections for my career. And so I managed Bureau of Prisons contracts. I managed U.S. Marshals, immigration, 6 states, 2 jails, men, women, maximum custody to minimum custody, across the board. So 16 different jurisdictions. So it's
everything from Cool Hand Luke to Oz.
Kinda. You remember the shaman that was at the Capitol?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We had him. He was in the facility, my last facility I was responsible for. Nice guy, by the way. It's, in corrections, you take who the government sends to you to manage them.
Cool Hand Luke was one of my favorite. Was that a realistic movie about how things were?
Nothing Hollywood reflects is realistic about corrections.
Everything you've learned has just been eradicated.
Well, see, it was movies like Cool Hand Luke that kept me fearful of breaking the law.
What about Shawshank Redemption?
Good movie.
I just never could picture myself crawling through 3/4 of a mile of sewer, so I'd be stuck.
I don't know, 3/4 mile of sewer or a life sentence in prison.
Well, true, but all his good friends were there.
Yeah.
No, besides the guys that weren't all his good friends. You probably can't share with us some of the true horror stories, but I'm sure you could share with us some of the great success stories.
Yeah, that's part of the problem of our current system. It's filled with success stories, but no one really wants to talk about success. They just like to talk about the bad parts of prison. One of the challenges with U.S. corrections is there's not many success stories. If you look at recidivism, I prefer to say reincarceration. But if you look at the people that get cycled in through our system, it's a 2/3 fail rate. 2/3 of them go back.
Wow.
They recidivate. And it's these are human beings that made poor choices. And you're accountable for your choices. You follow the rules, and when you don't, but they're not necessarily bad people. They're people that, in many cases, were in really bad situations, made some poor choices. But the fact is still a 2/3 fail rate. What business I know you're a business owner. I mean, what business can survive with a 2/3 fail rate?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine the airlines trying to survive on a 99% success rate. They're out of business if they fail 1 out of 100. I'm sure you've written books. I'm sure you've given lectures. We only have a finite amount of time, and I'm not going to learn everything there is to learn in an hour. If you had the magic wand, what would you fix first?
Good question. Hard question. I mean, it's
okay. First, second, third, then.
Yeah. If you look at corrections and culture in the United States, and I ask this of people many times over, give me an example of where the government changed the culture. And people struggle. Now there are examples, but they struggle because there's not very many, and so, the reason we exist is to show the government, show US, show our leaders, both, politicians and directors, that there's a safe and humane way to run prisons and jails and community and medical, within the facilities. And so our purpose is to show them that culture change is possible, and measure outcomes, and then we'll give it to the government once we're done. So if you're asking for me, my response would be, put aside the old way we do corrections, allow us to implement it our way, which is going to take a visionary to do that. Measure outcomes that will prove to you that way we do corrections is significantly more humane. It's better for the staff. Did you know the average lifespan of a correctional officer is 59 years old? Did you know that? 59. Wow. That's 17 years less than the general population. What about corrections takes 17 years from a correctional officer's lives? That's not including the incarcerated. I'm talking about the staff. It's that toxic of a culture. So to answer your question, is we want a chance to prove to our country that there's a better, more humane way of doing this that allows purpose between the staff and the residents, to allow them an actual opportunity to change.
Have you done?
I'm sorry. Is it rehabbing? Is it re-educating, refocusing, rechanneling, rewriting priority? I mean, how do you change it?
It's everything. I would argue the system's so broken, it's very difficult to change culture one piece at a time. Let's take the system, let's put it aside for a second, and let's rebuild it from the ground up the way we believe it should be run, which is actually more safe, more secure. Remember, I was the head of security of 65 prisons. I know security very well. I'm one of the top experts in the country. And so what we propose to do as far as operating prisons is actually more safe, more secure, and it gives people a fair chance. And the reason I say that, if I could for a second, of all the 2 million people we have incarcerated in the country, 40% of them have 5 to 10 previous incarcerations, not arrests, incarcerations. Only 13 people that enter the system in the US are in for the first time. We keep circulating and recycling human beings. We don't give them a fair chance. How many new victims are created?
How do you stop it?
Well, we have a 3-tier.
I'm sorry. How do you stop somebody who's been a repeat offender, let him out, and expect him not to come back? What do you got to do different?
Well, to our solution, there's 3 pillars to change culture. Okay. And understand, when I say change culture, we have access to them 24 hours a day for the whole time of their sentence, which is prime time to give them some help. And so the first thing is you have to change the environment within prisons, jails, and community. So it's an environment of growth. It's an environment of opportunity. It's an environment of chances. It's an environment of forgiveness in many cases, moving forward. So don't put people in an orange jumpsuit that says inmate across the back. I mean, that's part of the environment problem. Well, clearly I'm going to act like an inmate when you show me I'm an inmate. There's ways to do that institutionally where it's called normalizing the inside of the facility. So it looks like the best you can inside looks like general society. So first we have to start, plants, green, trees. I mean, growth. The environment of the staff has to be more of the staff and the residents working together to help the residents make better choices. The current system, it's a punishment model philosophy. It's very paramilitary. I'm a Marine. I also was an officer in the Army. I get military. But unfortunately, in corrections, it's not exactly conducive to change. Very rigid. Very, I'm the officer, I'm in charge, you're not. I'm going to remind you of that on a day-to-day basis. So we have to bridge that gap to actually allow for trust, which is a dangerous word in corrections, or a relationship between the staff, professional relationship, and the residents. So the officers still enforce the rules, and that's important. Clearly, they didn't come in. They came into prison because they didn't follow the rules on the outside.
Right.
And reinforcing that's still important on the inside. But we have to give them an opportunity for growth and for change and to make some better choices. And if we don't engage the staff in that, we're just going to keep getting more of the same.
I'm curious too. How do you think, from your experience, perspective, and understanding, do the correctional facilities within the United States compare to those in other countries?
Well, I was in UK 2 weeks ago for a week touring some of their prisons. And mass incarceration there is very similar to mass incarceration here. Their challenges are very similar. So the U.S. locks up. I mean, I'm a Marine. I'm proud of our country, but one thing I'm not proud of is we're number one at very few things. One of them is incarcerating our people. The fact is the reason we have so many incarcerated is because we recycle. They just keep going in and in and in and in. They get out, create new victims, come back in. They get out, create new victims, come back in. It's just this constant cycle. I'm being general. Obviously, some people come back for parole violations and things of that nature where there's not a victim. But the point being is, we just keep recycling our people and not giving them a fair chance.
Brian.
Yes.
I'm a free thinking, outside the box business person.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought of, or would you consider owning your own prison?
Oh, absolutely. That's part of our business model. Yeah.
And if you owned your own business, you own your own prison, take first-time offenders, and see how many never come back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And your second prison, you can take mild offenders and try to re-educate them and measure how many come back.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all going to be about the success ratio. If you can prove the model successful, and you start with first-time offenders, because that's going to be your best shot at nobody coming back if you handle it right and you educate them and put the right motivation in front of them. And then you stair step it, and within 50 years, maybe you have a chance of re-educating the whole prison system, but you're going to have to start at the low-lying fruit and then stair step it all the way up.
Right.
And I would recommend finding a state like maybe California that would have the easiest battle to overcome the politics of it all, because they're probably the most liberal state there is.
Yeah, it's a funny thing though. I'm finding the people that mostly support what we're doing are not extreme. They're not liberals. So
find the easiest path. Find the path of least resistance.
Yeah, and that's really the direction we're heading. It's we're interested in innovative thinkers, leaders that will support what we're doing. And it's called manage only. So the government owns the prison, and then we run it for them. We measure outcomes because we're outcomes based. We're not about profit. In fact, our purpose is to eliminate the profit motive. But and then measure our outcomes, and then once we prove it to the government that this crazy idea we have works, we'll give it to them. We'll help them implement it. Again, we're a nonprofit. Corrections is a government responsibility.
What is the time frame on your first prison?
Well, I don't want to give insider out, but we're getting close. We're also looking at running medical operations within prisons. And so, in fact, we're submitting our RFP. Our first medical response is actually going in this Wednesday for a smaller state to run medical for the system.
How big is your team?
4 full-time staff and a slew of volunteers.
How long would it take you to put together a team to consult and manage a prison?
Not long at all. Because what happens is when you take over a prison, the existing staff just come on your team versus the previous team.
Yeah, but you're going to have to get rid of the bad apples that make it a bad prison.
Yeah, and in many ways, some of those bad apples were never given a fair chance either. So, I mean, we want to make sure that everybody understands, where we're headed. And if they truly are a bad apple, they're a cancer, I'll get rid of them. But my experience working in corrections, most people, to include correctional officers, want to do good. They want purpose in their life. And the system just doesn't, in many ways, doesn't allow for that. So I think you'll be surprised how many people, once they understand what we're doing, they'll be engaged with it. But yeah.
The nature of man, greed, ego, power, that deck is stacked pretty high against reform. A lot of the prisoners don't want to have the life change. A lot of the guards and administrators don't want it to change. A lot of the politicians don't want it to change. Everybody likes the status quo because they're all benefiting from it. You got a major uphill battle to fight.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan because I believe that you're one of the few people that can make a difference, right? And if you can make a difference and make our society better, I'll write a check. I'll support it because I can't do what you're doing, but I believe in it. I know it's important.
You mentioned you have a slew of volunteers. Is that just anyone who's interested in this, or is a certain type of background? And if so, where are they located? How did they get involved?
Some of them are friends of mine, just from my long career in corrections. Some of them I met on LinkedIn. To be honest with you, LinkedIn's an incredible connecting social media platform. So, that's where the majority come from. Pretty much everyone who touches this idea loves it, almost without exception, even the hardcore punishment kind of folks, even because some of our supporters, our model, we're a nonprofit, so it's cheaper for society. So we can run prisons and jails cheaper or at less cost than you will see in government or private corrections. So sometimes their motivation isn't about people, it's about money. And people have different motivations for different reasons, but either way, we still meet that standard. It's, corrections is really one of society's largest challenges that no one's really been successful at addressing. It's mental health, it's addictions, it's inequality, it's homelessness, it's chronic care, it's elderly, it's homelessness. So if you look at society's problems, well, they're all end up in typically prison at some point.
What are the, I see it as 3 different buckets of problems.
Mm-hmm.
You have inmate problems, you have the worker bee problems, you have the political problems, and they're all different. They're all different buckets. And each bucket has layers and layers of shit in it, right? Let's talk about the inmate problem.
Mm-hmm.
How do you change the culture for the inmates?
Good question, by the way. First of all, you have to give residents a seat at the table. And some people will cringe when they hear me say that. Our first hire in our team is Adam Clausen. Adam did 20 years of a 213-year sentence in the Bureau of Prisons. He got out with the First Step Act. He was the first person we hired. And the man's unbelievably disciplined and focused on helping change the problem. And so I think you will find that most people incarcerated, they don't want to live in prison. They don't want to keep recycling. They just don't know how to break that cycle. And we bring a coaching model to corrections, both on the staff and on the resident side. And Adam was part of a team at FCI McKean, which is a federal prison, a higher security federal prison, they completely changed the culture of the prison from the resident standpoint. And this, it was led by one of the assistant wardens, so one of the staff, but they brought in this coaching model, this peer mentoring model within the facility without even engaging the staff per se. And they completely changed the culture just by residents helping residents. It's more detailed than that, but the concept is the facility went from one of those places to a good place to do time, a safe place to do time, a humane place to do time. And that's without even the staff being engaged. That's just the residents engaging. So there is ways to fix these problems. It's just that we have to be innovative. We have to step back. Everyone's got to have a seat at the table. It's got to be top down, bottom up, because all top down is not an effective strategy in corrections, business in general, without getting feedback from the bottom up. And so engaging the officers, engaging the residents and what they see as the problem and how to solve it is part of the equation. You can't fix it without everyone being engaged.
Right. I'm going to assume, because I have zero experience, I'm just shooting from the hip here, that 20% can't be saved. No matter what you do, they're bad guys and they should not be allowed in our society. Whatever the percentage is, there's some people that are just evil and should not be allowed back in our society. Can't we separate those bad guys and put them in one place and leave the people who want rehabbed and want a chance to be re-educated and given a second chance, put them together and allow that place to flourish and be successful?
Most of those in 20%, I would say, is way too high. I've looked into the eyes of evil, but it's not 20%. It's way less. Okay. Most people, even lifers, in my experience running prisons, lifers are some of the best. It's because they accepted their life. Prison is their house, and They don't want a dysfunctional house. And so they're more engaged on making it as normal as possible of any of the population, because that's their life. That's where they're going to live.
Right.
And you will find that
chaos. They don't want the chaos.
No. And so they're engaged in helping, especially the younger population, because that's typically where you have the problems. 18 to 26, 28-year-olds, and the ones that are engaged in gang activity, they're the ones that cause most of the problem. It's not the older. Once people hit 40 years old, there's very few of them that are going to cause you problems.
Way beyond that.
Right.
So I think you'd be surprised that most people incarcerated don't want that life. They just don't know how to get out of it.
Is it possible to say, and I apologize for this question in advance if you can't, because I have limited experience in this arena, what are some of the toughest or most horrific facilities, if you can say them, in the country?
I think every system has one of those places. It's all you have to do is look at the metrics that come out of them. If they're hardcore violence, deaths, suicides, if the prison is dirty, a dirty prison is a reflection of a dysfunctional facility. You'll never find a bad, clean prison, because there's a whole lot of things that have to happen for it to be clean and orderly. So I can't come out and say, this facility or that facility, but there are some out there that have reputations for being kind of a combat zone kind of place, and they're hard. It's not for lack of effort from government leaders trying to fix it. I've met some of the most passionate, incredible people. It's just the average tenure of a director of corrections is 2.5 years. And so with that constant change in leadership, it moves, it just spins. It doesn't go anywhere.
How important is the food?
Oh, it's critical. That's huge. If you even look at, for example, the health implications of the food. If you feed junk carbs, because every prison has a minimum calorie requirement they have to feed every day, whether it's 2,800 calories, 3,200 calories, or somewhere in between, which is pretty typical. That's the calories they have to feed. And sometimes in order to meet those calories as cheap as possible, and I say some exceptions, some prisons serve really good food, but most don't. If you're looking at a population of that has chronic care issues, if you look at diabetes, which is a huge problem, and they're eating junk carbs because it's the only meal they get, unless they have money to buy commissary, which is kind of the store in the prison. But then the commissary sells ramen noodles, Twinkies, Ho-Hos, and everything unhealthy.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why you have so many medical problems inside. Number one, what you eat is a reflection of what you think. Number two, it just feeds the medical problems because it's not quality food. But then you look at quality food, for example, fresh fruit, you can make homemade alcohol out of it. So people take the fresh fruit because they make alcohol, and people that are drunk really do silly things when they're inside. So security does everything they can to prohibit them from making alcohol by removing the stuff that they need to make it. So it's just this constant battle between security and outcomes on, what do they get? And unfortunately, in many cases, just
do they give them a lot of options for physical activity?
depends on the prison. But some of them, they can go out to the rec yard most of the day. Some of them, they get an hour or two. It just depends on the facility. And if you're a jail, it's even more restricted because it's a jail. So, like the Bureau of Prisons, I think you'll find a lot of state facilities you can find, depending on the compound, they have more freedom to go to recreation. But recreation by itself isn't going to fix recidivism. You need programming. You need mental health treatment. You need addictions treatment. You need physical. You need the exercise from the rec yard. You need an education. In many cases, the higher level of education, the less chance you're going to recidivate. So at least a high school, but you need, a bachelor's is, the higher you get, again, the chance, but at least a high school. And GEDs are sometimes hard to get, when you're incarcerated.
What do you think of Sheriff Joe?
Never met Sheriff Joe. Putting people in pink underwear and putting them in the tents in 100-degree weather is a terrible idea. I get the philosophy. You need to punish what some people perceive as bad people. But understand two things. Number one, they're not always bad people. They're people that made bad choices. Number two, you're also putting the staff in that environment. You don't treat your staff that way. And number three, the pink underwear, that's just political. I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Again, back to what I said earlier, create an environment of wearing pink underwear in tents in 100-degree temperature is not conducive to reform and change. No one's going to, you're focusing on staying cool and not learning. It's just the wrong environment.
If you had the magic wand,
Mm-hmm.
how long would it take to fix the problem?
If I had a magic wand, it's going to take 10 years to move the culture the right way, and it's going to take beyond our generation, in order to fix the problem. The key is we have to start it trending the right direction.
So you're a non-for-profit.
Right.
We have an audience of maybe 6 to 10 people, but we want to make sure anybody who's watching this can write a check to your organization and support it. So can you give us contact information, and I'll have Brenda make sure it's on the screen so that if anybody wants to write you a check or more information of how they can get involved, you'd be receptive. Yes?
You're absolutely. You're incredible by bringing that up. Yeah. We're a bright light in a very dark tunnel of reform, and if you have the means, whether it's $5 or more, please help us. We're challenging the culture of U.S. corrections. It's not going to be an easy thing to do. And money equals access and resources, unfortunately, but that's the way our society works. So our website is spcor.org, so socialprofitcorrections.org. And on there's a donate link. So please hit that and it'll come to us. So.
Thank you. Are there any elected officials who see the value of what you're bringing and are championing your cause?
Yes. It's Arizona's, of course, is currently my home state. Arizona also it has contract private corrections in it, and we have support in allowing us to compete against them. And that's all we're asking for is let us compete against in a free market to run those facilities, and we'll show them we can do a better job.
Doesn't it go out for bid every once in a while?
Well, there's two types of contracts. You have own and manage, and then you have manage only. Own and manage means the private prison company owns the prison. And so you can't really compete for those contracts. You can, but it's difficult because you have to have a place to put the population. Manage only means the government owns the building and we want to manage it for them. And there's absolutely opportunity for us to compete in that market.
How different is your management skill for the nonprofit than the for the profit company? How different are you from your competition?
Well, we're a contract model. We're an NGO, a non-government organization is nonprofit where they're a private business. So we have those
Yeah,
distinctions.
but what are the difference in services that you're providing versus what they're providing? They're doing it for profit. The less services, perhaps, the more money they make, the more services, the closer you come to losing money. I get it. You don't care. But if I'm voting, because that's the only way the private citizen gets to help make a decision, do I want to see a non-for-profit run my prisons with these features, advantages, and benefits, or the for-profit, which is doing it this way, and this way? So how do you separate your business plan, your services from what their business plan, their services are?
Well, good question. I mean, for-profit corrections, they're paid by people being in beds. It's per diem per day per person with sometimes guaranteed minimums for a prison. Our model is incentive-based. So we are rewarded if there isn't somebody in the bed, if that makes any sense. And so our purpose is to reduce or eliminate the profit motive of corrections, purely have it about people and not money. And so with our model, there'll be more resources put to help people, the staff first and residents, because we don't have a commitment to Wall Street. We don't have to make a profit. In our model, our outcomes are based off of reincarceration, increasing the staff members' life expectancy, bringing purpose to the job. And so it's different models because there's different motives and different incentives. Clearly, obviously, I'm biased. And I worked for private corrections for 28 years, and they do some good things. Don't get me wrong. But the reality is, when you remove the pressure of having to make money and your pressure is only to help people, it completely changes your outcome. So, we want to bring that forward. And there's also states that don't use private corrections. We want to help them too, because they're against the philosophy of for-profit corrections. So there's opportunities outside of competing for those beds. So I think there's opportunities on both ends.
Wow.
That sounds more like the low-lying fruit of where you should be positioning yourself first, is in the states that do not allow private ownership. They might come to you and say, we'll give you one prison. Let's see how you handle it.
That's what we're pushing for. That's what we have a lobbyist in Arizona just to move that direction. So it's I just the other night I was at a event with almost most of the legislators of Arizona talking about corrections, and all people, no matter your political affiliations or your beliefs, are motivated to change the system. I mean, the First Step Act was passed by Democrats and Republicans. It's the only issue that both parties agreed upon. That was it. And so, I think, bringing both parties together. Now, sometimes there are different motivations to why they want change, but they want change, and I think there's quickly going to gain political support for what we're doing.
Okay, Brian, I'm in love with what you're trying to do. I'm biased that you might be one of the best suited people in America to lead the charge on this. My question is, why the hell is it taking you so long? Why hasn't it already been done? What's slowing you down, brother? Come on, let's get it done.
We're on it. We are on it. Not to say we didn't,
You need more volunteers.
No, they need more money.
And that too.
Money
and money too, yeah. And political support. It's
juice. So why are you not pumping that pump harder?
Well, good question. Prison warden become fundraiser, become political activist, trying to change people's mind. I think I made some few mistakes along that route. It was a skill set that wardens didn't necessarily have. Now our team is filled with all kinds of people that when I first started that we didn't have, that have these skill sets better than I do. So, it's a matter of putting together a diverse team, passionate about the same thing to move the mission forward. So you're right. Every day that we don't fix or help fix the systems, our lives are lost, and we need to move quicker.
You got to recruit somebody who can close the deal for you. You execute the plan, find somebody who will close the deal for you, give him credit for closing the deal, and then go execute the plan. Whether it's a politician, a billionaire, it doesn't matter. Find somebody else to close the sale for you.
I love it.
Big Bob School 101.
No, seriously. If it's taking you this long, you got to recruit someone to do it for you, and you execute the plan. The recruit has no idea how to make it work, but he might be able to get the juice to make it happen.
Well, I mean, it's words of wisdom. And I agree 100% with you. And we are getting traction. We just got $1 million grant from Arnold Ventures.
That's
Huge.
awesome.
Gideon Powell, who's the CEO of Choil Petroleum, the largest private oil company, has given us a lot of support and money. In fact, I just got an email from him today referring us to some more. There are people that really want to make a difference. And
you don't need his money. You need his contacts, the introductions to make it happen.
And he's doing that. Yeah.
All right. I can't tell you, you are one of the few people I've ever met in my life who can make a change for the betterment of our country. That you are one of the few people who can change our society in a positive manner. I want to see you successful. I'm frustrated that you're not moving faster. You can change it. You can make it happen.
And just so you know, the louder he gets, the passionate he is.
Yeah, I'm
about
not angry
something.
at you.
He's not yelling at
No,
you.
at all. You sound just like Gideon Powell. He says the same thing. Brian, contracts, bid. We need to get this done.
Yes. We need to hire, delegate, and empower other people to do the shit that needs to get done. Yesterday.
Yes, sir. I agree 100%. Yep.
Whoa. What rank were you when you left the service?
In the Marines, I was a sergeant, active duty, and I was a first lieutenant in the Army.
Consider me a colonel. Get off your ass and make it happen.
Yes, sir, Colonel, sir.
All right, then. Thank you very much for your time. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank
Is there
you.
anything you want to share with the other 6 or 8 people who are going to watch this podcast?
I have a feeling there's a whole lot more than 6 or 8 people that watch your podcast.
No, not really.
Like I said, if he leaves,
Right.
ratings go up.
If I drop dead, the ratings will go up. Like a dead artist, right? The ratings go up if I die. Anyways, you have been informative, inspirational, and we only wish you Godspeed to hit your goals.
Well, thank you so much for your support. It means a lot. It's some days are frustrating when you're fighting the good fight.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Kick ass, brother. Kick ass.
We're on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.